Sarah ran through the rain, late again. Then she saw him, bleeding, alone, ignored by everyone. She could save her job or save a stranger. One choice changed everything. One act of kindness cost her world. But he held a secret. The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 in the morning, cutting through Sarah Mitchell's dreamless sleep like a knife. She reached out from under the worn comforter, her fingers fumbling across the nightstand until they found the button. Silence fell over the small bedroom, broken only by the sound of rain hammering against the window. Sarah lay still for just a moment, her eyes tracing the water stains on the ceiling that she'd been meaning to fix for months. The landlord wouldn't do it. He never did anything unless she called 5 times, and even then, his repairs were temporary patches that fell apart within weeks. She'd learned to live with the imperfections, the way she'd learned to live with so many other things that weren't quite right. The apartment was cold. The heating system worked intermittently. Another thing on her endless list of problems that required money she didn't have. Sarah pulled herself up, her body protesting every movement. She was 38 years old, but some mornings she felt twice that age. The exhaustion went bone deep, the kind that sleep never quite fixed. She padded quietly down the narrow hallway, her bare feet cold against the linoleum floor. At her son's bedroom door, she paused. Through the gap, she could see Tommy's small form curled under his superhero blanket, his 7-year-old face peaceful in sleep. Her chest tightened with that familiar mixture of love and fear that came with being a single mother. Every decision she made, every risk she took or didn't take, affected him. In the bathroom, Sarah splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her brown hair needed a trim, and she'd stopped coloring the gray strands that were appearing more frequently. There wasn't money for that kind of luxury. There was barely money for anything beyond rent, food, and Tommy's school supplies. She thought about her position at Westfield Industries. For 3 years, she'd worked as a senior customer relations specialist, handling their most difficult accounts. She was good at her job. Exceptional, actually. Clients asked for her by name. She'd saved 2 major contracts last quarter alone, pulling off negotiations that others in her department said were impossible. But her manager, Douglas Peterson, never acknowledged her contributions. In meetings, he'd present her ideas as his own. When clients praised her work, he'd redirect the credit to his team's efforts. Sarah had learned to stay quiet, to not make waves. She needed this job too desperately to risk losing it over wounded pride. She dressed quickly in the dark bedroom, a white blouse she'd ironed the night before, black dress pants that were starting to shine at the knees, and her one pair of professional heels that hurt her feet after an hour. The outfit was boring, forgettable, but appropriate. She'd learned to make herself invisible in corporate settings. By 6:15, she was in the kitchen making Tommy's lunch. Peanut butter and jelly again. She wished she could afford the lunch meat and cheese that other kids brought, or money for the hot lunch program, but those were expenses that didn't fit in her carefully calculated budget. She added an apple and a granola bar, then tucked a little note inside like she did every day. You are brave, you are kind, you are loved. Mom. Tommy wandered out at 6:30, rubbing his eyes. He was small for his age, with her brown eyes and his father's dark hair. Sarah's ex-husband had left when Tommy was 2, disappearing with barely a word and no forwarding address. The child support payments had stopped after 6 months, and she'd long since given up trying to track him down. Some battles cost more to fight than they were worth. "Morning, sweetheart," she said, forcing brightness into her voice despite her exhaustion. "Morning, Mama." Tommy climbed onto the chair at their tiny kitchen table. "Is it still raining?" "It is. You'll need your raincoat today. The blue one has a broken zipper." Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Of course it did. "Wear the red one, then. That's the baby one. It's too small." She turned to look at him. He was right. When had he grown so much? She'd been so focused on surviving day to day that she'd missed him outgrowing his clothes. "Wear it anyway for today, okay? We'll figure something out." Mrs. Chen from next door arrived at 7 to watch Tommy before school, the same arrangement they'd had for 2 years. The elderly woman refused to take more than $20 a week, insisting that she enjoyed the company. Sarah knew she was being charitable, and the knowledge made her throat tight with gratitude and shame in equal measure. "You look tired, Sarah," Mrs. Chen said gently, her accent thick but her English clear. "I'm fine," Sarah lied, kissing Tommy's forehead. "Be good for Mrs. Chen. I love you." "Love you too, Mama." The bus stop was 3 blocks away. Sarah walked quickly through the rain, her thin jacket soaking through immediately. She couldn't afford an umbrella. The last one had broken a month ago, and replacing it meant choosing between that and Tommy's new crayons for school. The crayons had won. The bus was late as usual. Sarah stood with a dozen other tired-looking people, all of them staring at nothing, lost in their own struggles. When it finally arrived, the crowd pushed forward. She found a seat near the back, next to a man who smelled like cigarettes and didn't acknowledge her existence. Through the rain-streaked window, Sarah watched the city pass by. Elegant brownstones gave way to commercial districts, then to the towering glass buildings of the financial sector. Westfield Industries occupied floors 12 through 18 of the Cumberland Tower, a building so expensive that Sarah had felt like an imposter the first time she'd walked through its marble lobby. Her phone buzzed. A text from Douglas. "Team meeting at 8:30 sharp. Don't be late." Sarah's stomach clenched. The meeting was originally scheduled for 9. Moving it up by 30 minutes meant she'd have barely enough time to get there. Douglas knew this. He knew she took the bus, knew she was always cutting it close with her arrival time. This felt intentional. The bus crawled through traffic. Sarah watched the minutes tick by on her phone. 7:45, 7:52, 8:03. They were moving so slowly. She calculated the walking distance from the bus stop to the office. If traffic didn't clear soon, she'd have to run the last 6 blocks in heels and rain. At 8:11, she yanked the stop cord and jumped off, deciding to take her chances on foot. The rain had intensified, coming down in sheets that soaked her within seconds. Her shoes splashed through puddles as she half ran, half walked toward Cumberland Tower. Other pedestrians huddled under awnings or moved with umbrellas held low. Sarah just kept moving. 3 blocks from the office, she saw him. A man lay crumpled on the wet sidewalk, half propped against a concrete planter. His gray suit was darkened by rain and something else. Blood, she realized with a jolt. It streaked down the side of his face from a gash above his eyebrow. His eyes were closed, and for one terrible moment, Sarah thought he might be dead. People walked past him. Some glanced down with mild curiosity before hurrying on. Others actively avoided looking, stepping around him like he was just another piece of urban debris. A woman in a red coat actually stepped over his outstretched leg without breaking stride. Sarah stopped. She stood there in the pouring rain, her phone showing 8:17, her job and her livelihood waiting 3 blocks away, and she looked at this stranger who was bleeding and alone. She should keep walking. The rational part of her brain screamed it. "Keep walking, Sarah. You can't afford to lose this job. Tommy needs you to keep this job. Someone else will help him. It's not your responsibility." But her feet wouldn't move forward. Instead, they carried her to the man's side. "Sir?" She knelt on the wet concrete, ignoring the cold water seeping through her pants. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered. Up close, she could see he was probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and features that would have been handsome if they weren't contorted with pain. His briefcase lay open beside him, papers scattered and dissolving in the rain. "I'm okay," he mumbled, the words slurred. "Just slipped." Blood dripped from the cut above his eye, mixing with the rain. Sarah pulled off her jacket and pressed it gently against the wound. "You're bleeding. Did you hit your head when you fell?" "I think so." He tried to sit up straighter and winced. "My ankle." Sarah looked down. His right ankle was swelling visibly, already twice its normal size. "I think it might be broken. We need to get you help." "No." His hand caught her wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. "No hospitals. I can't. I have a meeting. Important meeting. Sir, you need medical attention. Just help me up, please. I just need to get to my car." Sarah glanced at her phone. 8:23. 7 minutes until the meeting. 7 minutes until Douglas would mark her as late again, would have more ammunition to use against her in his quiet war of attrition. She thought of Tommy, of the electric bill due next week, of the rent that was always just barely paid on time. The man's eyes opened fully, and she found herself looking into brown eyes that were hazy with pain, but somehow still present, still aware. "Please," he said softly. "I wouldn't ask, but everyone else just walked by. Those words settled into her chest like stones. Everyone else just walked by. Sarah made her choice. "Okay, let me help you." She gathered his scattered papers, shoving them into his briefcase despite the rain damage. Then she carefully positioned herself beside him, taking his weight as he struggled to stand. He was heavier than she expected, and taller, leaning on her heavily as they moved slowly away from the planter. "My car," he said, pointing weakly down the street. "The black sedan. Third one down." Getting him there took forever. Each step was an ordeal, his injured ankle dragging, Sarah's shoulders straining under his weight. Her phone kept buzzing in her pocket. Douglas, undoubtedly, asking where she was. At the car, the man fumbled for his keys with shaking hands. "I can drive," he insisted. "You absolutely cannot drive." Sarah took the keys from him. "Where do you live?" He gave her an address in Preston Hills, one of the wealthy neighborhoods on the north side. Of course he lived there. His suit probably cost more than she made in 2 months. Sarah helped him into the passenger seat, adjusted the seat back, and closed the door. Then she stood in the rain, looked at her phone, 8:34, and felt the weight of what she'd just done settle over her. She was late, unforgivably late, and she'd made it worse by choosing to help a stranger instead of protecting her own future. But as she walked around to the driver's side, as she started the expensive car with its leather seats and new car smell, Sarah couldn't bring herself to regret it. Some things mattered more than being on time. Some things mattered more than keeping your head down and staying invisible. She just hoped that truth would matter to Douglas Peterson when she tried to explain why she'd missed his meeting. The rain continued to fall as Sarah pulled the car into traffic, driving a stranger to safety while her own security crumbled with every passing minute. The GPS directed Sarah through streets she'd only seen from bus windows. Preston Hills rose before her, all manicured lawns and iron gates. Boutique shops lined the streets. Restaurants with valet parking where a single meal would cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "Turn left here," the man said, voice strained. He'd been quiet during the drive, one hand pressed against his forehead. Sarah had given him her jacket, and now she drove in her soaked blouse, shivering. She turned onto Belmont Avenue. The homes stood back from the street behind stone walls and mature trees. "Which house?" she asked. "The gray one, number 43. Sarah pulled into a circular driveway. The house was stunning. 3 stories with ivy climbing one side, windows gleaming. The front door alone probably cost more than her yearly rent. This was what success looked like. "Thank you," he said, as she put the car in park. He reached for the door and winced. "I'm sorry for taking your time. You said you had somewhere to be?" "Work." Sarah checked her phone. 17 missed calls, 9 texts, all from Douglas Peterson. "I had a meeting at 8:30. His face paled. "You should have called an ambulance." "You asked me not to." Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt. "Let me get you inside." Getting him out took several minutes. He was taller than she'd realized, his ankle unable to bear weight. They shuffled awkwardly to the door, both breathing heavily. He punched a code into a keypad. The door opened, and they entered a foyer with marble floors and a crystal chandelier, throwing rainbow prisms across cream walls. A curved staircase swept upward. They reached a living room. She helped him onto a leather sofa. She grabbed throw pillows, arranging them under his ankle. A blanket went over his legs. In the kitchen she found ice packs and wrapped them in dish towels. "Here." She placed the ice pack on his ankle. "Keep this elevated. Do you have someone I can call?" "No wife. My sister lives in Seattle." He managed to smile. "I'll be fine. You should go." Sarah's phone buzzed. She read Douglas's message, her hope crumbling. "Your position is being reviewed. Report to my office immediately." She typed back. "There was an emergency. I'm on my way." His response came instantly. "Emergencies are not excuses for abandoning your responsibilities." Sarah stared at the words. 3 years of excellent work meant nothing. "Bad news?" he asked. Sarah forced a smile. "My boss isn't happy. Let me call you a doctor. I have a physician who makes house calls. I can call him after you've gone." Sarah studied him. Color was returning to his face. The bleeding had stopped. "Promise you'll call." "I promise." He met her eyes. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell." "Thank you, Sarah Mitchell, for stopping when everyone else walked past. For choosing to help when it cost you something. That's rare. Her throat tightened. It shouldn't be rare. But it isn't. Which is why what you did matters. She nodded and headed for the door. Back in the car, Sarah rested her forehead against the steering wheel for one long moment, feeling the full weight of the morning's choices press down on her shoulders. Then she straightened, took a deep breath, and began the drive back to Cumberland Tower and whatever consequences awaited. The rain had stopped. Weak autumn sunlight broke through the thinning clouds overhead. Traffic moved smoothly, everyone having already reached their morning destinations. Sarah parked in a public garage and walked slowly to the bus stop. Her phone showed 10:17 when she finally pushed through the heavy revolving doors of Cumberland Tower. Her clothes were still damp from the rain, her hair plastered to her head, shoes squelching across the marble lobby. She looked like someone who'd completely fallen apart. Marcus, the security guard, caught her eye. His expression was sympathetic in a way that made Sarah's chest tighten. "Rough morning, Ms. Mitchell?" "You could say that." Sarah managed a weak smile. "Is it bad up there?" Marcus's weathered face told her everything. "Mr. Peterson has been calling every 15 minutes since 9, asking if you'd arrived." The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt like descending rather than rising. Sarah watched the numbers climb while her stomach sank. She thought about Tommy, about rent due next week, about the carefully constructed budget that barely held together. What would she do if this job disappeared? The office was unnaturally quiet when she stepped through the glass doors. Heads turned to look at her disheveled appearance, then quickly turned away. Jennifer from accounting caught her eye and mouthed, "Sorry," before returning to her screen. The atmosphere felt charged and dangerous. Douglas Peterson's office door was closed. Sarah approached slowly, each step heavier than the last. She knocked softly. "Come in." His voice was cold, clipped. Sarah entered to find Douglas behind his polished desk, expression carefully neutral. He was thin, early 50s, with grey hair combed precisely and wire-rimmed glasses he constantly adjusted for emphasis. Behind him, the window showed the city under clearing skies. "Sit down, Ms. Mitchell." Sarah sat, folding her hands to keep them from trembling. "Mr. Peterson, I apologize for missing the meeting." "There was an emergency." "I'm not interested in excuses." Douglas picked up a manila folder and opened it slowly. "Your attendance record makes interesting reading. You've been late 11 times in 6 months. Left early 6 times. Requested 7 schedule modifications for personal matters. My son has had health issues requiring medical appointments. But I've always made up the time, always completed my work. Let's discuss your work." His lips thinned. "You're adequate, Ms. Mitchell. You handle basic customer relations with minimal competence." The words hit like a slap. "Minimal competence? I saved the Brennan account last month. The Henderson contract everyone said was impossible. The team saved those accounts. Your contribution was minimal." He wielded the word like a weapon. "What you did today goes beyond lateness. You missed a critical meeting. You ignored 17 calls and 9 messages. You showed complete disregard for your responsibilities. Please, if you'll let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." He pulled out a document. A termination form, already filled out. "Your employment with Westfield Industries is terminated effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance per company policy. Security will escort you to collect your belongings." The words didn't process at first. "You're firing me? Your position is being eliminated due to performance issues and attendance problems." His voice was flat, rehearsed. He'd prepared for this, wanted it. "This is a business decision. A business decision." Her voice rose. "I've given 3 years to this company. 3 years of excellent work. My clients request me specifically. I have a 97% satisfaction rating. Had. Past performance doesn't excuse present failures." He pressed his phone. "Marcus, please escort Ms. Mitchell." "You can't do this." Sarah stood on shaking legs. "This isn't about performance. You've been trying to push me out for months because why, Ms. Mitchell?" Douglas leaned back, and there, for just a moment, Sarah saw the truth. A small smile played at his mouth. He was enjoying this. "Please, enlighten me. Because I make you look bad. Because when clients praise my work, it highlights your inadequacies. Because I'm better at this job than you've ever been." Because your ego can't handle being outshone by a single mother. The words crowded her throat, but she couldn't force them out. Couldn't give him that satisfaction. This is wrong, she said, voice breaking. This is unjust. This is business. Douglas returned to his computer screen, dismissing her. Marcus will help you gather your things. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his kind face sympathetic. Ms. Mitchell? Sarah followed him in a daze. Around her, co-workers stared at screens or became deeply involved in phone calls. No one met her eyes. No one spoke. They all knew. They'd probably known this was coming. At her desk, Marcus handed her a cardboard box. Sarah began filling it with 3 years of her professional life. The coffee mug Tommy had painted, his little handprints in bright blue. The succulent plant that had somehow survived. Her nameplate with its small silver letters. Files full of notes that didn't matter anymore. A framed photo of Tommy on his first day of kindergarten, gap-toothed smile full of hope. Jennifer from accounting appeared, glancing nervously toward Douglas's office, before pressing something into Sarah's hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. Everyone knows this is wrong. You're the best person in this department. She gestured at the business card. Call this lawyer. She handles wrongful termination. This isn't right, Sarah. Sarah looked at the card and slipped it into her pocket, not trusting herself to speak. The walk through the office with her box felt like a perp walk. Marcus maintained respectful distance, but everyone could see. The cardboard box was a universal symbol of failure, of humiliation. Douglas had orchestrated it perfectly, making her departure as public and degrading as possible. In the elevator, finally alone except for Marcus, Sarah felt the first tears fall. She couldn't stop them. I helped someone this morning, she said, barely above a whisper. She needed to say it aloud, needed to hear it. A man was lying hurt on the sidewalk, bleeding. I stopped to help him. That's why I was late. I did the right thing. Marcus nodded slowly, infinitely sad. Sometimes doing the right thing costs us everything. The words settled over Sarah like a heavy blanket. She thought about the man in the gray suit, safe in his beautiful house in Preston Hills. Did he have any idea what his emergency had cost her? Probably not. People like him didn't think much about people like her. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. Autumn sunlight broke through clouds, creating small rainbows and puddles on the sidewalk. Sarah stood on the corner, clutching her box, watching the city move with its usual indifference. Somewhere across town, Tommy sat in his classroom, unaware that his mother's careful house of cards had just collapsed, that the stability he'd learned to trust was gone. How would she tell him? How could she explain that Mama had lost her job, that things were about to get harder? He was 7 years old. He shouldn't have to worry about rent or food. That was her job as his mother, to protect him from these fears. And she'd failed. Her phone buzzed, startling her. An unknown number flashed on the screen. Sarah almost didn't open it, but something made her tap the message. This is the man you helped this morning. You left your jacket in my car. I'd like to return it to you, and I'd like to thank you properly for your extraordinary kindness. Sarah stared at the message, at this small gesture from a stranger, and something inside her cracked open. The tears came harder, and she let them fall on the public street, not caring who saw. She'd done the right thing this morning. She'd stopped to help someone hurt and vulnerable. She'd chosen compassion over self-preservation, and it had destroyed her life. That was the lesson, wasn't it? That was what the world taught people like her, over and over. Keep your head down. Don't be late. Don't help strangers on sidewalks. Take care of yourself first, last, and always, because no one else will. Sarah's fingers moved across her phone screen. Keep the jacket. I don't need it anymore. Then she powered off her phone, tucked her box under her arm, and began the long walk to the bus stop. She couldn't afford a taxi now. She was unemployed, broke, heartbroken, and terrified of what came next. And somewhere in his elegant house in Preston Hills, surrounded by marble and crystal and comfortable wealth, a man she'd saved was probably already forgetting her name. The bus ride home felt endless. Sarah sat in her usual seat, but everything had changed. The cardboard box rested on her lap like a physical weight, a constant reminder of failure. Around her, people stared at their phones or gazed out windows, lost in their own worlds. No one noticed the woman whose life had just fallen apart. No one saw the tears she was fighting back. She got off 3 blocks from her apartment and walked slowly, deliberately delaying the inevitable moment. How could she face Tommy? How could she look into her 7-year-old son's trusting eyes and tell him that everything was about to get harder? That Mama had failed them? Mrs. Chen was waiting by the door when Sarah climbed the stairs. The elderly woman took one look at the box in Sarah's arms, and her face fell with understanding. "Oh, Sarah, I lost my job." The words made it real. Sarah's voice cracked. "I helped someone this morning, a man who was hurt. I was late, and they fired me." Mrs. Chen pulled her into an embrace. "Come inside. Tommy is having a snack." Sarah shook her head. "I need to tell him." Tommy looked up from his coloring book when Sarah entered their small apartment. His face lit up the way it always did when she came home from work. That pure joy that made everything worthwhile. "Mama, you're home early. Did you have a good day?" Sarah set the box on the kitchen counter and knelt beside him at the little table. "Hi, sweetheart. I am home early today. Something happened that I need to talk to you about." "What's in the box?" "Just some things from my desk at work." Sarah reached out and touched his cheek, memorizing the feeling of his soft skin under her palm. "Tommy, I need to talk to you about something very important. Can you listen carefully?" His smile faded. Children had a sixth sense for when something was wrong. "Are you sad, Mama?" "A little bit sad, yes." Sarah took his small hands in hers, holding them gently. "Remember how I've always told you that sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices, even when those choices are difficult?" He nodded solemnly. "This morning I saw a man who was hurt very badly. He was lying on the sidewalk bleeding, and everyone was just walking past him. So I stopped to help him. But that made me late for work, and my boss was very angry. He decided that I can't work there anymore." Tommy's eyes widened. "You got fired?" The word sounded harsh coming from a child's mouth. "Yes, honey, I got fired." "But you were helping someone. That's what you always tell me to do. You say we should help people who need help." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "That's right, and I still believe that. I did the right thing, Tommy. Even if it cost me my job, I did the right thing." "So why are you sad?" "Because now I need to find a new job. Things are going to be tight for a while." Tommy thought about this. "Will we have to move?" "I hope not, but we're going to be okay." "Because we're a team," Tommy said. "That's right, we're a team." She pulled him into a hug. Over his shoulder, she could see bills on the counter. Rent, electric, school fees. That night, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, her mind racing through possibilities. She needed a concrete plan. Her savings account held exactly $347. Rent was $900 due in exactly 2 weeks. The severance pay would cover 1 month, maybe stretch to 2 if she was very careful. She scrolled through multiple job listings online. Customer relations specialist, account manager, the same positions from 3 years ago. Her phone rang. An unknown number. "Sarah Mitchell?" "Yes." "Jennifer Lewis from Westfield. I got your number before they deleted access." "Jennifer, what Douglas did was wrong. You're the best CSR we've had. He's been threatened by you. Looking for an excuse." Jennifer paused. "Did you call that lawyer?" Sarah looked at the card. "Not yet." "You should. Most work on contingency. At least call." After hanging up, Sarah set the card aside. She didn't have energy to fight. She needed to find work. She updated her resume until midnight, then checked on Tommy. He slept peacefully. She watched him breathe, feeling responsibility settle over her. The next morning, Sarah received an email. She needed to come in at 10 to sign paperwork. Going back to that office made her stomach churn, but she needed those documents. Mrs. Chen agreed to watch Tommy again while Sarah went to handle the paperwork. Sarah dressed carefully in her one good suit, the navy blue one she reserved for important meetings. If she had to walk back into Westfield Industries, she would do it with dignity, and her head held high. The bus ride felt both familiar and strange at the same time. Sarah got off at the usual stop and walked toward Cumberland Tower, but this time she wasn't rushing to make a meeting. This time she was unemployed, walking in as a visitor rather than a valued employee. Marcus was at the security desk when she entered. His weathered face brightened when he saw her. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm glad you're doing okay. Just here to sign final papers." Sarah managed to smile. "Is Douglas in his office?" "Actually, no. He called in sick today. Marcus lowered his voice. Convenient, isn't it? Fires you yesterday and can't face you today. Sarah felt a small sense of satisfaction at that. Who am I meeting with? HR, third floor, conference room B. She signed in as a visitor, something that stung more than it should. Then she headed for the elevators, trying not to look at the 14th floor button that had been her destination every day for 3 years. The third floor was quiet. Sarah found conference room B and knocked. Come in. A woman in her 40s looked up from a stack of papers. Ms. Mitchell, I'm Patricia Chen from Human Resources. Please have a seat. Sarah sat across from her. Patricia pushed several documents across the table. These are your termination papers, your severance agreement, and your benefits information. You'll receive 2 weeks' pay as severance. Your health insurance will continue through the end of the month. After that, you'll need to arrange COBRA coverage if you want to maintain your insurance. Sarah skimmed the documents, her eyes catching on phrases like voluntary separation and mutual agreement. Nothing voluntary or mutual about it. But she didn't have the strength to argue. She signed where Patricia indicated, her hand steady despite everything. I'm sorry this didn't work out, Patricia said, not unkindly. Your performance reviews were always excellent. Sometimes these things just happen. Sarah wanted to laugh at the euphemism. These things didn't just happen. Douglas Peterson happened. Petty jealousy in corporate politics happened. But she simply nodded, gathered her copies of the paperwork, and left. She was walking toward the elevator, trying to hold herself together, when she heard a voice. Sarah? Sarah Mitchell? She turned and froze. The man from yesterday stood near the reception area, looking much better than he had on that rainy sidewalk. He wore a dark suit, impeccably tailored. A small bandage covered the cut above his eyebrow. He was leaning slightly on a cane, favoring his injured ankle. It is you, he said, limping toward her with a smile. I've been hoping I'd run into you. I wanted to return your jacket and to thank you properly. Sarah stared at him in confusion. What are you doing here? I work here. Well, I'm visiting today, actually. I had some business on the executive floor. He gestured toward the elevators. But never mind that. I'm so glad I found you. Yesterday, after you left, I realized I never got your contact information. When I tried to text that number, you told me to keep the jacket. You work here? Sarah's mind was spinning. At Westfield Industries? I do. He extended his hand. I don't think we properly introduced ourselves yesterday. I just got fired from here, Sarah interrupted, her voice breaking despite her best efforts. Yesterday, because I was late, because I stopped to help you. His smile vanished. What? I helped you, and I was late, and my boss fired me. I just signed the termination papers. I'm unemployed. The words poured out of her, all the pain and fear and anger she'd been holding back. I did the right thing. I stopped when everyone else walked past, and it destroyed my life. The man stared at her, something unreadable crossing his face. They fired you for being late one time? It wasn't just one time, according to my boss. Apparently, I've been late 11 times in 6 months. I've left early 6 times. I've been minimally competent at my job. Sarah laughed bitterly. Never mind that I saved 2 major accounts or that I have a 97% client satisfaction rating. None of that mattered. Who was your supervisor? Douglas Peterson. Customer relations. Sarah wiped her eyes angrily. But it doesn't matter now. It's done. I just needed to come in and sign the papers, and now I'm leaving. Wait. The man put his hand on her arm gently. Please, I need to understand this. You were fired because you helped me? I was fired because Douglas Peterson has been waiting for an excuse to get rid of me for months, and yesterday gave him that excuse. Sarah pulled away. But like I said, it doesn't matter. I need to go. It matters to me. His voice was quiet but intense. It matters very much. Will you tell me exactly what happened? Please. Sarah looked at him. He seemed genuinely distressed, his brown eyes full of concern. And maybe because she'd already lost everything, or maybe because he was the only person who truly understood what her choice yesterday had cost her, she found herself talking. She told him about the meeting that Douglas had moved up deliberately, about arriving late and soaking wet, about being escorted out with a cardboard box while her co-workers watched, about Tommy asking if they'd have to move. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. Douglas Peterson. he said when she finished. Customer Relations Manager. You know him? I know of him. The man pulled out his phone. I need to look into this. Would you be willing to give me your phone number? I'd like to follow up with you. Why? Sarah asked. What good will it do? Because what happened to you was wrong. And maybe, just maybe, I can help fix it. He met her eyes. I know you don't know me. I know you have no reason to trust me. But please, give me a chance to make this right. Sarah hesitated. Then she recited her number, watching him type it into his phone. What did she have to lose? She'd already lost everything that mattered. Thank you. He saved the contact. I'm going to look into this situation. And Sarah, what you did yesterday, stopping to help me when no one else would, that showed more character than most people demonstrate in a lifetime. Any company that doesn't value that kind of person doesn't deserve to have you. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Then she turned and walked toward the elevator, leaving him standing there in the lobby. She didn't know his name. She didn't know what he could possibly do to help. But as she rode the elevator down, as she walked out of Cumberland Tower into the bright autumn morning, she felt something small and fragile stirring in her chest. It almost felt like hope. The man stood in the lobby long after Sarah Mitchell had walked away, her words echoing in his mind. Fired for being late. Fired for stopping to help him. The injustice sat in his chest like a stone. He pulled out his phone. Patricia, it's me. I need Sarah Mitchell's personnel file immediately. Customer relations, complete employment record, performance reviews, client feedback, everything, and termination documentation. Of course. When do you need it? Within the hour. Executive conference room on 18. He made another call. Marcus, security. I need access logs for the 14th floor from yesterday morning. Everyone who entered Douglas Peterson's office between 8 and 11. Yes, sir. Right away. The elevator ride to the 18th floor gave him time to think. He'd built Westfield Industries from nothing, but growth meant he couldn't know everyone anymore. He couldn't watch every manager, couldn't see every decision made in his name. And somewhere, people like Douglas Peterson had slipped through. His office occupied the northeast corner of the 18th floor. He rarely used it, preferring to visit different departments. But today he needed the authority this space provided. Patricia arrived 20 minutes later with a thick folder. He opened it. Sarah Mitchell, hired 3 years ago. Single mother. Emergency contact. Tommy Mitchell, age 7. He thought about the child who'd asked if they would have to move. The performance reviews told a clear story. First year, shows promise. Second year, excellent negotiation skills, exceeds targets. Third year, outstanding performance, recommend for promotion. But that review had been written by Douglas Peterson's predecessor. Peterson's notes painted a different picture. Adequate performance. Meets minimum expectations. He pulled up client feedback next. 23 testimonials in 3 years total. Words like exceptional, professional, saved our account, and specifically request Ms. Mitchell appeared repeatedly. 2 clients had sent letters to corporate specifically praising her work. The termination documentation showed she'd been fired for chronic lateness and performance issues. Chronic. 11 instances in 6 months, according to Peterson's report. He picked up his phone again. Patricia, I need Douglas Peterson's attendance records for the same period, and his client satisfaction ratings. While he waited, he reviewed Sarah's attendance. 11 late arrivals, yes. But the notes told a story Peterson hadn't bothered to include. Son's doctor appointment. School emergency. Tommy sick. No child care available. Every single instance had a documented reason. Every one had been made up with extended hours. The 6 early departures, all on days when she'd arrived 2 hours before her shift started. She wasn't leaving early. She was leaving at the end of a full workday. Patricia returned with Peterson's records. His attendance was perfect. Not a single late arrival in 6 months. His client satisfaction rating was 68%. Sarah's had been 97. The picture became clear. Douglas Peterson had a stellar employee who made him look bad simply by being good at her job. So he'd kept meticulous records of every late arrival, documented every schedule modification, and waited for the perfect opportunity to remove his competition. Yesterday's lateness had given him that opportunity. He made another call. I need a list of everyone who attended the meeting yesterday morning at 8:30. The one in Douglas Peterson's department. The answer came back within minutes. 7 people. All of them had been notified of the meeting 2 weeks ago. All except Sarah Mitchell, who'd received notification at 7:15 yesterday morning via text message. Peterson had moved the meeting specifically to ensure she'd be late. His phone rang. Marcus from security. "Sir, I have those access logs. Douglas Peterson entered his office at 7:42 yesterday morning. He left at 8:27. No one else entered during that time." "And Sarah Mitchell's arrival time?" "She signed in at the front desk at 10:17, nearly 2.5 hours after the meeting. 2.5 hours she'd spent driving a stranger to the hospital, getting him settled, making sure he was safe. 2.5 hours that had cost her everything." He sat back in his chair, anger building. This wasn't just poor management. This was calculated cruelty. Peterson had orchestrated Sarah's termination deliberately, using her compassion as the weapon against her. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He opened it and saw a photo. Sarah Mitchell standing outside Cumberland Tower, holding her cardboard box, tears streaming down her face. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon. Below the image was a message from Jennifer Lewis, accounting department. "This is what Douglas did. Everyone knows it's wrong. Are we just going to let him get away with it?" He saved the image and made his decision. His next call was to legal. "I need you to review a termination case for potential wrongful dismissal. Sarah Mitchell, terminated yesterday by Douglas Peterson. I'm sending over documentation now. I want to know if we're liable." The response came back faster than he expected. "Based on these records, absolutely. The stated reasons for termination don't match the documentation. Her performance reviews show excellence. The attendance issues are all documented and approved. This looks like targeted harassment. If she lawyers up, we'll settle. It's that clear cut." "Good. Prepare reinstatement paperwork." "Sir, I should warn you, if we reinstate her, Peterson could claim retaliation if we take action against him. Let him claim whatever he wants. I'll deal with Peterson separately." He spent the next hour reviewing 3 years of department records. A pattern emerged. Sarah Mitchell had brought in $2 million in new business through client retention and contract negotiations. Douglas Peterson personally had brought in $60,000, all from existing clients with guaranteed renewals. Yet Peterson's salary was 40% higher than Sarah's. The inequity made him sick. His intercom buzzed. His assistant's voice came through. "Sir, Douglas Peterson is here. He says he has his weekly report. Send him in." Douglas Peterson entered looking relaxed and confident. "Good morning. I wasn't expecting to see you in the office today." "Sit down, Douglas." Something in his tone made Peterson's smile falter. He sat. "Tell me about Sarah Mitchell." Peterson's expression became guarded. "I'm not sure what you mean." "The employee you fired yesterday. Walk me through that decision." "Oh, that situation." Peterson relaxed slightly. "Unfortunately, Ms. Mitchell had chronic attendance problems. Yesterday was the final straw. She missed a critical team meeting, ignored multiple attempts to contact her, showed complete disregard for her responsibilities. Chronic attendance problems. 11 late arrivals in 6 months. Exactly. It's a pattern of unreliability. Every single one documented and approved by you in advance." Peterson shifted in his chair. "Well, yes, but the frequency. Her son has a chronic illness requiring regular medical appointments. She provided documentation for every absence. She made up every minute with extended hours." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Douglas, why did you move yesterday's meeting from 9 to 8:30? The earlier time worked better for everyone's schedules. You notified everyone 2 weeks ago except Sarah, who received a text at 7:15 yesterday morning." The color drained from Peterson's face. "I'm sure that was an administrative oversight." "I'm sure it wasn't." He opened the folder and pulled out client testimonials. 23 clients specifically praised Sarah's work over 3 years. 2 sent letters to corporate. Her client satisfaction rating was 97%. Yours is 68. She brought in $2 million in retained business. You brought in 60,000, and yet somehow you deemed her minimally competent. Peterson said nothing. "Here's what I think happened, Douglas. You had an exceptional employee who made you look mediocre by comparison. So you kept records of every late arrival, waited for the perfect opportunity, and manufactured a reason to fire her. That's not, I made a judgment call based on her reliability. You made a calculated decision to remove someone who threatened your position." His voice was cold. "Yesterday morning, Sarah Mitchell stopped on her way to work to help an injured man who was lying bleeding on the sidewalk. Everyone else walked past him. She stopped. She drove him home, made sure he was safe, and then came to work. 2.5 hours late, yes, but she saved someone's life. I couldn't have known. That man was me, Douglas. The words hung in the air. Peterson stared at him, comprehension dawning slowly. I'm the person she helped, the reason she was late. The emergency she couldn't explain because you didn't give her a chance to explain. He closed the folder. Sarah Mitchell lost her job because she stopped to help the owner of this company when I was injured and bleeding on a sidewalk. Does that seem right to you? I didn't know. No, you didn't. And you didn't care. You saw an opportunity and you took it. He stood. You're suspended, effective immediately. HR will contact you tomorrow regarding the status of your employment. Security will escort you to collect your things. You can't do this. I have rights. So did Sarah Mitchell. You violated hers. Now deal with the consequences of that choice. Marcus appeared at the door, summoned by some invisible signal. Mr. Peterson, please come with me. When they were gone, he sat alone in his office, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Sarah Mitchell was probably job hunting, trying to figure out how to keep a roof over her son's head. He picked up his phone and dialed the number she'd given him. It rang 4 times before she answered, her voice cautious. Hello? Sarah, this is the man you helped yesterday morning. I have some news about your situation. Look, I appreciate whatever you're trying to do, but I really don't think. I spoke with HR and legal. Your termination was wrongful. We're prepared to offer you immediate reinstatement with back pay and a formal apology. Silence on the other end. Sarah, I don't understand. Her voice was small, disbelieving. Douglas Peterson acted inappropriately. His decision to terminate you is being reversed. If you're willing to come back, your job is waiting. But how? Why would they listen to you? Because I have some influence here. He paused. Sarah, I think it's time I properly introduced myself. My name is James Westfield. I own the company. The silence that followed was complete. Finally, she whispered, You're kidding. I'm not. Yesterday morning, you saved the life of the man who owns Westfield Industries, and then you lost your job because of it. I'm trying to make that right. He could hear her crying, small sounds she was trying to muffle. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come back. Say you'll let me fix this. Mr. Westfield. James, please. James, I helped you because you needed help, not because of who you are or what you could do for me. I know that. That's exactly why this matters so much. He looked at the client testimonials spread across his desk. You're an exceptional employee, Sarah. You should never have been fired. Come back. Let me give you the recognition you deserved all along. What about Douglas? He's been suspended. HR is reviewing his entire tenure. I suspect he won't be returning. Another long silence. Then quietly, When do you want me to start? Monday morning, 9 o'clock, top floor. We'll discuss your new position. New position? You're not going back to customer relations. That would be awkward, all things considered. We'll find something better. He smiled, though she couldn't see it. Something that matches your actual abilities. When the call ended, James sat back in his chair, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not just satisfaction at solving a problem, but genuine hope that he'd found someone who understood what really mattered. Someone who would stop to help a stranger even when it cost her everything. Those were the people worth building a company around. Those were the people who made the world better, one small choice at a time. Monday morning arrived with crystalline sunlight streaming through Sarah's apartment window, painting golden rectangles across the worn carpet. She'd barely slept, her mind spinning with anticipation and lingering disbelief. Was this really happening? Was she really going back? Not just going back, but returning as a director. She stood in front of her closet, staring at the limited options hanging there. Each piece of clothing held memories now, weighted with the week's emotional journey. The navy suit she'd worn to sign termination papers felt wrong somehow, tainted by that memory of humiliation and defeat. Instead, she chose a simple grey dress that Tommy had once told her made her look like a princess. "You look pretty, Mama," he said now, watching her from the doorway with sleepy eyes and his superhero blanket trailing behind him. Sarah knelt down and pulled him into a tight hug, breathing in the sweet scent of his strawberry shampoo. Thank you, baby. How do you feel about Mama going back to work today? Are you excited? Happy. He squeezed her tight with his small arms. Mrs. Chen said you were getting your job back because you did the right thing. She said good things happen to good people who help others. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Sometimes they do, sweetheart. Sometimes they really do. And this is one of those times. The bus ride to Cumberland Tower felt surreal. 4 days ago, she'd made this same journey in the rain, rushed and anxious. Then she'd made it in devastation, carrying a cardboard box of her broken dreams. Today, she rode with something fragile and new blooming in her chest. Not quite hope yet. Maybe possibility. Marcus greeted her at the security desk with a genuine smile that reached his weathered eyes. Ms. Mitchell, welcome back. Mr. Westfield is expecting you on 18. The 18th floor. Sarah had never been there in 3 years of employment. Executive territory, where decisions were made that filtered down through departments like distant thunder. The elevator seemed to take forever, her reflection in the polished brass doors, showing a woman who looked both terrified and determined. The doors opened onto a reception area that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows, elegant furniture, and an assistant who looked up with a warm smile. Sarah Mitchell? Yes, I'm Rebecca. Mr. Westfield is waiting for you. Conference room, just through there. Sarah walked through glass doors into a conference room where James Westfield stood by the windows, looking out at the city. He turned when she entered, and she saw he was still using a cane, his ankle clearly not fully healed. Sarah, thank you for coming. Thank you for, she gestured helplessly, for everything, for investigating, for caring. I should be thanking you. You saved my life. He moved toward the table. Please, sit. They sat across from each other, and James slid a folder toward her. This is your new contract. Director of Client Relations. 20% salary increase, full benefits, and a seat at departmental leadership meetings. Sarah stared at the papers, the numbers blurring. Director? But I've only been here 3 years. You've earned it. You brought in $2 million in retained business. You maintained the highest client satisfaction rating in the company. The only reason you weren't promoted before was Douglas Peterson's insecurity. James leaned forward. Sarah, I've spent the last 3 days interviewing your clients. Do you know what they told me? She shook her head, unable to speak. They said you're the reason they stay with Westfield. Not our prices, not our products. You, your integrity, your compassion, your genuine care for their needs. His voice softened. The same qualities that made you stop to help a stranger on a rainy sidewalk. I just did what anyone should do. But most people don't. That's the difference. James opened another folder. I want to show you something. This is Douglas Peterson's employment record. In 5 years as manager, he had 17 employees leave the department. 17. Most cited hostile work environment or lack of recognition. The turnover cost us hundreds of thousands in recruiting and training. Sarah thought about the co-workers who'd quietly disappeared over the years. Good people who'd simply stopped showing up one day. Peterson created a toxic culture because he was threatened by excellence. He surrounded himself with mediocrity so he'd look better by comparison. James closed the folder. That ends now. I want you to help me rebuild that department. Not just manage it, but transform it into what it should have been all along. I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of responsibility. You've been ready. You just weren't given the opportunity. He smiled. Besides, I have faith in people who stop to help strangers in the rain. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest, like a door opening after being locked for years. When do I start? How about right now? There's someone I'd like you to meet. James led her down the hall to another office where a woman in her 50s looked up from a computer. Sarah Mitchell, this is Helen Rodriguez, VP of Operations. Helen, this is our new Director of Client Relations. Helen stood and extended her hand warmly. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your reputation precedes you. The Brennan account alone was masterful work. They spent the next hour discussing the department restructure. Helen explained that client relations would be reorganized around Sarah's approach, prioritizing relationship building over pure sales metrics. We're going to train the entire team using your methods, Helen said. Your client satisfaction ratings didn't happen by accident. As they talked, Sarah felt years of diminishment falling away. Every time Douglas had called her adequate, every dismissive comment, every stolen credit for her work, It all began to dissolve in the face of this recognition. She'd been good at her job all along. Exceptional, even. She'd just been working for someone who needed her to believe she wasn't. Around noon, James invited her to lunch in the executive dining room. "I want to tell you something," he said, as they sat by the windows overlooking the city. "That morning when you found me, I was having the worst day of my life. I'd just come from the hospital where my father had another stroke. I was distracted, not paying attention, and I slipped on that wet concrete." Sarah's breath caught. "Is he okay?" "He's stable now. But lying there on that sidewalk, hurt and alone, watching people walk past me like I was invisible." James shook his head. "It was humbling, terrifying. And then you stopped. You didn't know who I was. You just saw someone who needed help. I'm so sorry about your father." "Thank you. But here's what I realized in that moment." James met her eyes. "Success, money, power. None of it matters when you're hurt and alone. What matters is whether anyone stops, whether anyone cares. You showed me something I'd forgotten while building this company, that humanity matters more than productivity, that compassion is worth more than efficiency." Sarah felt tears building. "You would have done the same for someone else." "I'd like to think so. But honestly, before that morning, I'm not sure I would have. I was always too busy, too focused on the next meeting, the next deal." He smiled sadly. "You reminded me what's actually important." That afternoon, James called a department meeting. Sarah walked into the conference room on 14 to find her former co-workers gathered, their expressions ranging from curious to shocked. Jennifer from accounting caught her eye and mouthed, "Yes." James stood at the head of the table. "For those who don't know me, I'm James Westfield. I own this company. I don't usually attend department meetings, but today is special. I want to introduce you to your new Director of Client Relations, Sarah Mitchell." The room erupted in applause. Genuine, enthusiastic applause. Sarah saw tears on Jennifer's face, saw smiles all around. These were people who'd known Douglas was wrong, who'd watched her be escorted out with a cardboard box, who'd felt powerless to stop an injustice. "Last week," James continued, "Sarah was wrongfully terminated by your former manager. The reasons given for her dismissal were false. Her performance was exceptional. Her attendance issues were documented medical necessities. She was fired because she threatened someone's ego by being excellent at her job." The room had gone completely silent. Sarah Mitchell was fired because she was late one morning. She was late because she stopped to help an injured man on the sidewalk. She drove him home, made sure he was safe, and missed a meeting because of it. James paused. "That injured man was me." Gasps echoed around the room. Sarah saw shock on every face. "Sarah lost her job because she saved my life, because she showed compassion when everyone else walked past, because she chose to do the right thing even when it cost her everything." James looked around the room. "I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. This company will no longer punish excellence. We will no longer tolerate managers who feel threatened by talented employees. We will no longer reward mediocrity while crushing those who dare to be exceptional." He turned to Sarah. "Would you like to say anything?" Sarah stood on shaking legs. She looked at faces she'd worked alongside for 3 years, people who'd shared coffee breaks and complaints, small victories and quiet frustrations. "I just want to say thank you. To everyone who knew this was wrong and said so. To Jennifer, who gave me a lawyer's card. To all of you who made me feel like I mattered." Her voice cracked. "When I was escorted out of here with my box, I felt like a failure, like everything I'd worked for meant nothing. But you knew the truth. You saw it, and that matters more than you know." Jennifer stood up, then another person, then another. Soon the entire room was standing, applauding again, and Sarah was crying openly now, overwhelmed by this moment of recognition she'd never expected. That evening, Sarah picked up Tommy from Mrs. Chen's apartment. The elderly woman held her hands and said, "I told him good things happen to good people." "You were right," Sarah whispered. At home, Tommy wanted to hear everything about her day. They sat on the couch together, and Sarah told him about the new office, the new title, the standing ovation. "Remember what I told you last week?" she asked. "About how I did the right thing even though it cost me my job?" Tommy nodded solemnly. "Sometimes, baby, doing the right thing costs us something. It might cost time or money or opportunities, It might even cost us things we think we can't afford to lose. Sarah cupped his face in her hands. But the right thing is still the right thing. And we do it anyway. Not because of what we might get back, but because of who we want to be. Like helping people who are hurt? Exactly like that. Like stopping when everyone else walks past. Like caring when it would be easier not to. Tommy thought about this. You're brave, Mama. Sarah pulled him close, breathing in the scent of his shampoo, feeling his small heartbeat against hers. We're both brave. We're a team, remember? The best team. Later, after Tommy was asleep, Sarah stood at her apartment window looking out at the city lights. She thought about the journey from last Monday to this one, from rushing through rain to standing ovation, from cardboard box to director's office, from despair to possibility. But the real change wasn't in her title or salary. It was in the reflection she saw in the window glass. A woman who'd learned that her worth wasn't determined by people like Douglas Peterson. A woman who'd discovered that doing the right thing, even when it cost everything, was its own reward. A woman who'd stopped measuring success by survival and started measuring it by integrity. She thought about James Westfield lying on that wet sidewalk, watching people walk past. She thought about the choice she'd faced in that moment. Keep walking and save her job, or stop and risk everything. She'd stopped, and in stopping, she'd lost her job, her security, her carefully constructed stability. But she'd also found something more valuable. She'd found proof that she was exactly who she'd tried to teach Tommy to be. Someone who helped others, someone who cared, someone who did the right thing even when it hurt. And maybe, just maybe, she'd helped remind a successful businessman that humanity mattered more than profit, that compassion was more valuable than efficiency, that the measure of a person wasn't what they achieved, but who they chose to be when no one was watching. The city lights twinkled below, each one a story, a life, a person making choices every day. Some would walk past the hurt and the vulnerable. Some would stop. Sarah knew which person she was, and nothing, not even the threat of losing everything, would ever make her become someone else. That was the real victory. Not the job, or the title, or the applause. It was knowing, deep in her bones, that when the moment came, she'd chosen correctly. She'd chosen compassion, and that choice had changed 2 lives forever.